Welcome to the Artist Academy podcast. I'm your host, Andrea Earhart, and May is Mural Month. Welcome to the best time of the year. All month long, you'll hear from master muralists to learn the tips to creating a thriving business painting large scale. I have handpicked each interviewee based on their expansive knowledge of the mural industry so that you can learn from the absolute best. Plus, I'm throwing in some solo episodes all about how to make money with murals. And if that isn't enough, I have created a full training for you all about how to grow your art business quickly using murals like I have. If you're listening this month and thinking, okay, let me see what this mural thing is all about. Or if you're wondering if you are able to create murals too, then go to artistacademy.co. That's artistacademy.co, not com. That was taken. .com was taken. Anyway, to learn how you can start making money in the mural biz. The majority of my income comes from murals, and I want to help you get started too because I know how profitable they can be. So go to artistacademy.co to claim your free training for the month of May. Woo! Welcome to Mural Month. This week's episode features Oregon-based muralist of 20 plus years, Annie Margarita. I could talk about murals with Annie forever, for all day long, and we're going to definitely have a follow-up episode because there's just so much more that we could chat about. But anyway, she has been around the block the time or two, aka the world. She's traveled the world with art a time or two, painting murals, faux finishing, sculpting, and interior decorating. Annie kind of does it all. She has built up her business up to charging 100 plus easy per hour while working just a few days a week and a few hours a day. She makes her own schedule. She doesn't overdo it. And she still makes a great living with her art. We chat about painting for amusement parks like Disney and many other big names. I'm telling you, she's a big deal. She travels, it's literally the dream. And I'm so excited to have her as a guest for May Mural Month because Annie is an amazing example of someone who has put in the work early, she's done it, and she is now reaping the benefits of it. And you can too. Everybody can too. I hope everybody should look at Annie as just an inspiration, and she just shows what's possible. So let me know what you think of this week's episode with Annie Margarita. I found you in the Mural Artist group on Facebook, and I was going through all your stuff, and I'm like, man, this chick knows her stuff about murals, and so I'm so excited to talk. It's my favorite subject. So yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love murals. I've been doing murals almost my whole life because I started when I was 13. I did one for the middle school, yeah, and then I was a professional one since really 93, but I did a lot of murals in between there. I had a big mural business down in Tucson, Arizona, and painted a lot of, when I was in Orlando, I was working for the theme parks, and I was actually being a scenic artist and doing set design and animal containment for Disney and all that stuff. But I didn't really become a full-fledged muralist full-time until about 99 when I started my company. So I've been doing it a long time.
Wow. Yes. Tell me more about this. So Disney, like that name, I'm like, whoa, tell me, how did you get in with that?
Well, it was weird. I was in the Marine Corps, and because starving artists starve. So I didn't know that I could make a living as an artist. In the Marine Corps, I started doing murals. They always like, oh, you're an artist, we want a mural. So I got out and I went to Orlando and I applied at SeaWorld, and I was a scenic artist there for a while. And then I met a girl that was working for the Larson Company, and her brother was the contractor for Animal Kingdom's animal containment. So I applied to Larson Company and I worked my way up through the ranks. They hired me as a painter. And they're like, well, we don't have anything for you to paint. Do you want to learn how to be a sculptor? And I was like, sure, I need a job. So I started sculpting the concrete for the rock work and artificial trees and all that to contain the animals. And I was really good at it. So then I started running crews, and I worked Animal Kingdom, and I was actually like a lead at SeaWorld doing Journey to Atlantis, and then I got a job working for Man. So I worked on the World Expo Aquarium in Portugal, and I worked in Holland on the Blijdorp Zoo and all these other zoos. And then I went back to Orlando for a while and did another package on Animal Kingdom, the Asia package. But when I was in Holland, actually that was kind of the last job I did as a concrete artist. I hurt my shoulder bad. So I had to go back to Tucson, and I was like, well, what do I do now? So I went back to college to be an interior designer, but meantime, for money, I started doing murals, and it just expanded. I'm like, well, this is what I love. So I really became a muralist, and then I started doing faux finishing, kind of taught myself that, but I had already been doing the plaster, so I really went into Venetian plasters, and I got a big account with Canyon Ranch and did all their remodels, and I really expanded into businesses and homes. I had like multi-million-dollar homes. I was doing all the Tuscan stuff, and it just kind of expanded, and I've kind of slowed down a little bit with that. I still love it. Now I'm teaching for the Paint Hive, so I'm working. This is actually the mural I'm working for an instructional video. It should probably be released in a month or so, and it's going to be, this is just day 3 on it, so it'll have a lot more detail for chinoiserie and plaster effects. But I also do leather work, so I do painted leather work, and I do beadwork, and I do interior design, and all kinds of stuff, because it all crosses over, and I'm really happy to just do any kind of art.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I love that. Oh, I'm so glad I am able to interview you right now. So thank you for taking the time to do this, because I'm so interested in all of this. And this is just such a fun, man, you've had quite the career. What's your favorite? Is it murals, or is it teaching now? It's like, what's top of the list?
I like to teach because I feel like I'm kind of on top of my game, and there's a new generation coming up, and murals, after the big slam back in 2008, there's not very many of us that stayed in business because of the economy. So I was able to stay afloat. Thank goodness my clients weren't affected as much because they were the upper millionaire status. They were still able to continue with their work. And I started teaching to kind of help people do it the old-fashioned way, because now you have a lot of tools that we didn't have, like iPads and doing the squiggle style for layout and projectors. I've never projected anything. I just learned how to work really fast, and sometimes I use a Pounce pad, but not very often. Mostly I will do a graph instead of, a projector. But there's so many tools now, and there's a huge renaissance going on, and I'm really excited to see that the last couple of years there's just been an explosion with murals again. It's great.
Yeah, it really has murals and like the street art stuff, and it's a great time to be on social media with murals and all of that. Awesome. Okay. So I'm like, where do we start? Where was the tipping point that took you from hobby to professional artist is typically the first question we ask.
Well, I've sold paintings since I was in high school, and I'm 55 now, so I'm kind of experienced.
Yeah, very experienced.
So I think people told me artists don't make money, and I was so afraid of it that I waited. I was in the Marine Corps painting murals, and I suddenly had a realization. I'm like, why is an artist in the Marine Corps working as a mechanic? And I worked as imagery intelligence, doing dissemination. I was sitting there going, why am I doing this to myself? And that's when I realized I was an artist. In 1993, I just said, I'm an artist, and I'm going to make a living at that. So I went to work for the theme parks, and you don't make very much money, but you get a lot of experience, how that set painting and all that happens. And the way I got in there was building a portfolio. And that's your most important tool for getting in. Even if you don't have a client, paint a wall and paint it over, paint another wall, because you're going to improve. And a lot of people are like, well, gosh, how can you paint over something you've created? It's, well, decorate your whole house. Don't marry anything. You're just going to keep improving. So I talked my way into the theme parks, and then you get that on your resume, and it just expands. I think just recognizing that was my skill set expanded my whole horizon. don't listen to other people. You know who you are inside, what you love to do. And so long as you're learning and you're improving and you're working hard, you have to have a really pretty good work ethic to be a muralist, because nobody's going to boss you around and say, do this, do that. You've got to go in there. You've got to get the client. You've got to do the advertisement. You've got to have the skills. You have to have actually the flexibility, because clients aren't going to want exactly what you want. But in order to have good clients and repetitive clients and clients that'll build from room to room, I've had clients that did their whole house. Once I got in did that one room, you do your whole house by selling up. And I've gone over that. I have a video, how to contract murals with the Paint Hive, that junior muralists could probably learn quite a few tips on how to sell yourself and how to sell more. Because if you get in somebody's house and they want just a mural, you go, well, I learned faux finishing, because they're like, well, what do you think I should do with the furniture? What do you think I should do with this wall? I'm like, wow, this is a whole nother thing. So I went and got my interior design degree, and then I'm like an educated specialist on walls. I didn't hardly ever design a kitchen. I went in there, and other interior designers would come in and say, what color? Because you have to have color classes in interior design and in art classes. So really learning how to mix color, you learn about the color spectrums, and you learn about complementary colors, and you become more of a color specialist as a painter. So that was a really strong point. So you make a lot of friends, work for one interior designer, show her your portfolio, find another designer, show your portfolio, and then you get bigger clients. There's a borderline with how you pay to get work. Sometimes you tell a client, well, if you get another mural, I'll cut a little off, or I'll throw in some faux finishing or something like that. Well, with interior designers, you say, hey, you get me a big job and I'll give you 5 or 10%. And that helps them. They sell you. It's kind of, if you're in a store, they're going to upcharge you 100%. Well, I don't let my interior designers upcharge me. I just give them cut, because if they upcharge you, you don't know what's going on. You say, no, I'm going to charge the client myself, and then they have to trust you that you'll give them a little payback.
Yeah, I love that. Just giving people incentive to recommend you could, I mean, be the thing that pushes you above all the other artists locally in town. I love that. So you mentioned how you were pitching yourself. Is that how you got a lot of your mural jobs in the beginning? Is it word of mouth now? Did you pitch yourself in the beginning?
Actually, I found a really good tool, and it's called a home show. And if you go to a home show, and we had a really good one in Tucson, SABA, Southern Arizona Home Builders Association. And I contacted them directly and said, hey, I'm a muralist. Would you like a live demonstration during your home show? And so they're like, oh yeah, live. So you do live, and they give you free space, and you have your cards printed out. And so people visit you. The first home show, I contracted $65,000 for the clients that I got at that home show. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do this every year. I did the Denver one. I've done Scottsdale. I've done Aspen. I've done all kinds of home shows. And then also a lot of home shows have awards. They'll give out awards, public favorite and all that. And so you get awards, and then you could put those on your resume, been awarded. And then you meet builders, you meet more interior designers. And so then I worked on Parade of Home shows. So then my stuff was featured, and then people start recognizing you, and you get some print material, like I've been in some magazines and stuff. And if you want to be in a print, take some pictures of your stuff and write an article about yourself and send it into a newspaper or whatever. I've only had to do that a couple times. Usually they contact me. And then when you get in, I've found clients will say, well, yes, I'm going to recommend you to somebody else. They don't want their muralist painting somebody down the street. So
that is a thing too. Oh, that is such a thing. I painted for this one guy in this really nice neighborhood, and he's admitted to me before, I don't really like when my neighbors like have the same contractors. I'm just like, what? Like, what? It's weird. But yeah, not everybody's like that, I guess. It's just,
I've never really been referred by one of my clients. I really never have. They've shared this stuff, but I've never really contracted. I did have one street in Saddlebrook, Arizona, though. For some reason, everybody got my name there, and I was just marketing a little bit there, but I had one of the streets, I think I had 6 clients on, and they didn't know each other, maybe 2 of them, but I called it my street of dreams because I made so much on that street.
I love that. So, we've mentioned a couple of prices. We love to talk about money here on the Artist Academy podcast, and just like murals, because murals it's one of the most lucrative things to do in art. I'm a heavy pusher of it. And so let's talk about money. How much do you charge for a mural? Like, how much do you price per square foot or by time, or you just kind of give a bid, or how do you price?
I price square foot. I think that's the only fair way. I do not cut prices to cheaper houses. This is my square footage. Money is the object. The faster you are, the more money you make. Now, in the heyday, when Tuscan was hot and when Venetian plasters were hot, there's a lot of products now. And I'm actually doing murals with golden products now. They have theme paints, they have plasters, they have all kinds of stuff. So I'm using their line right now. Plaster I was charging $20 a square foot for plaster. And I would do a bathroom in, a week for 15 grand. That's good money.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So in Tucson, back in the heyday, before the big slam, $20,000 to $40,000 a month. My best year was 2004. I think it was $230,000 as a muralist and faux painter.
Woo, you go, girl.
Yeah. So the money is there. You want to do high quality work. You want to be on time. You want to be very dependable. It's the most important thing is having people comfortable with you being in their house. You do a bid. I found too, and this is really kind of sad, but if you give somebody a deal, like a discount, and they know that you're discounting them, for some reason those clients kind of turn ugly. Don't discount unless you've been in there a while. Then you can judge the client. Yes, they're going to give me more work. It's worth it. I've had clients where I will give them a faux room because they spent $80,000. I'm going to give them something. But discounting, like you bid something at $2,500, and how do you price? Okay, this is really important. If somebody's got a budget, they're not going to really tell you how much they want to spend. You've kind of got to figure that out. So I go in and give them tier pricing. So if I measure out the wall, say they have 1,000 square feet, this is easy. Okay, they want a high detail mural, over the top. They want all this detail and everything. And it might be, let's say $50 a square foot of high detail. Well, are they going to spend $50,000 on 1,000 square feet? No, they're not. What is your lowball price is going to be maybe $8 is really an industry standard for huge walls.
Okay.
It's not real comfortable for, 1,000 square feet for $8,000. It depends on what you're comfortable with. I give them a high ball, medium, and a low. And so you say, well, you can get this much for this price, this much for this price, and this much for this price. Well, usually they pick the medium because the high is always too high. And somebody that wants a lot of detail doesn't want bare minimum. And then you can also adjust it, say, okay, you want all this detail in this area, but I can do sky and airbrush sky, which will be boom, boom, quick. So you can charge $15 a square foot for that big sky, and then $50 a square foot for the high detail. And then you put that in the bid, but you don't break it up and say, this is what this is all is until they say, why is this cheaper? But usually you can say, well, it's generalized. Because if you make an itemized thing, they're going to pick and choose and pick and choose and pick and choose, and then it's going to be really complicated. So I do rough sketches. I say, this is going to be all sky, and this is going to be where your peacock is, and blah, blah, blah. So that's the way you can get, because I think I had about a 97% chance that I was going to get a check out of the first meeting. About 97%, because you know that they want something. And if they say, well, I have to wait for my husband to okay this, and it's okay, they're not going to probably get this mural. Okay. So don't let it bother you. If they say that's just, they're comparing with other muralists maybe, but you're going to get that. Don't let it bother you. But
do you take a deposit before you start?
Always. 50%. 50%. Okay. And if it's a really big mural, then I'll do thirds, but never start anything. And I always try to make my price, and this is kind of touchy too, but if you make your price worth it for the 50%, that you do the mural for 50%, then you consider the other 50% just the gravy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't ever shortchange yourself, because if somebody says, oh, I got this mural for $500, the next person's going to say, well, my friend said that you gave them this for $500, and you're going to be known as,
the discount artist. Yeah. Okay.
And it's hard to climb up. It's easy to settle down on a price, but it's really hard to build up if you're starting out really inexpensive. Even if you don't have the confidence, at least boost it above your comfort level, because chances are that you probably will get that. If they've seen your work and they want your work, price it market standards, and you probably will get it.
Okay. So you're saying, just to recap, like, I love this approach, the 3-tiered approach. So bottom level, $8 per square foot, top level, $50 per square foot. And then, or we can kind of meet in the middle at 20, 25, whatnot. And you can and that's mostly where people go. Okay. That's a great.
Well, that is what my price is. Now, that's in an area where murals are popular and there's a lot of muralists. Okay. There's areas like New York where your top price is going to be way higher than that. So you really have to do the research in your area, and then everybody can't compete with me. So a lot of people are like, oh, she's too expensive. So you have to either have a lot of work for less money, or you have a minimal work for money that is good money. So
yeah,
it's you can't just say $8 to $50. And it's also according to what it is. If I'm going to do a highly detailed old world master, it's like, how many people can do that? Well, not very many. So you can charge more for it.
I love that. Where are you located?
I'm actually in Eugene, Oregon right now. Okay. Our home was involved in the Holiday Farm Fire back in Labor Day last year. Oh, and wow. I lost my entire house and my entire studio. So, yeah, everything, all my inventory, all my tools, all my clothes, everything, everything. So we're finally rebuilding. As you can see, I have a temporary studio going now. I've only done a couple of things so far, because you have to recover. It's shocking. And you have to pace yourself so that you can feel comfortable with your career again. So a lot of my time right now is clean up and designing a new beautiful house that'll have a studio upstairs. Every cloudy day has a silver lining, I think. But yeah, it's been a little rough year with COVID too.
Oh my gosh. I guess just to look on the bright side though, this is a chance for you to just start fresh. I'm sure you had so much stuff in there that was just maybe like little old paint or whatever, and just old paintings that, I don't know. And now you get to start fresh and build new. Oh man, that's so exciting.
It is very exciting. It's exciting.
Yeah.
Thank goodness we were insured. That's another thing. You get business insurance.
Yep.
Renter's insurance. Cover your equipment, because if we wouldn't have insurance, starting from rock bottom isn't any fun.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, okay. And a lot of businesses, I know a lot of construction sites and stuff, like they won't even hire you if you don't have the proper insurances. Like you can't even come on the site to paint.
And you can get a rider on home insurance if you have it, but I always carried $3 million insurance when I won't go into somebody's home. And now I don't have to pay extra for that. You just say to your insurance agent, when something comes up, say, hey, I need a rider. And then you have that but you don't want to be in a house without insurance, especially if there's other contractors and somebody throws an oil rag down and it starts a fire, And they're like, were you using oil? No, I don't use oil paints in people's houses.
Oh,
So
I love this. So my husband is actually an insurance agent, and so he's always harping on me about this. And I'm like, because I'm like, I'll sometimes forget to have him sign a contract, and like you have to do this because that it puts in effect your insurance. And it's exactly like you said, if something happens, because if other contract people are doing the floor and something happens, that way we're not liable. Just having all of that. So I'm really glad you said all of that.
and another big thing is you're in somebody's house. Make sure to tape and protect their floors and all their other walls. And I went and I was doing touch up there at the very end in one of my clients' house, a really good client that I've been on there several times. And they have white carpet and you're just touching just little teeny things. And I put a little teeny blue spot on their rug and trying to clean it and turn it into a big spot. So you hire a rug cleaning company, get over there today and get that cleaned up for them. Don't ever, no, I didn't do it or anything like that. No, I'm going to take care of this for you. Leave it clean.
Yeah. Take care of your space. Have insurance.
Always
take a deposit.
Always pick up all your tools. Put them in. Ask for a place in the garage. Pick up your tools every day. Maybe not strip your paint and your paper. You're not going to have to do that. But roll up your tarps. I had been operating in Tucson. Scorpions would get under your tarps. So roll up your tarps every morning.
Oh,
Every evening. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And keep their house nice. Keep their house nice. Because I was in some houses for 6 months. You're going to have a working relationship with people. Keep their house nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Be on time. They got to be on time. They don't want to sit there and wait for you. After a while, they'll give you the key to their garage or like passcode, and you just go in there, and then I get a coffee break.
Yeah. A lot of people. I was painting at a recent one here lately, and it was the first day she met me, and I think it's mostly because she follows me on Instagram. She's like, "This is my garage coach. Like, I already trust you." I'm like, okay, it's very like Midwest style though. Like people just come into my house, we don't care. But yeah, okay.
Well, and that's the great thing about social media too is they can see you already tell them who you are by what your social media is. I have my personal site. Some of my stuff on my personal site, I'm just love crazy posts, and memes and stuff. So you have to kind of nip that in the butt, especially when you're marketing, until people really know who you are.
Yeah, come across professionally and positively and all of that. People are watching. Awesome. Okay, so how many hours do you spend per day painting? Or now you're teaching, but whenever you would say you do a mural for a whole week, how many hours do you paint per day?
I haven't had a full-time week in years and years. Since working for myself, but that's working in somebody's home. Say I get there, I don't like going there first thing in the morning. I know a lot of contractors, plumbers, and all those guys, they'll go in at 7. I'm like, no way. I'm not even ready to paint at 7. So I show up at 9 and I push until I don't take lunch because I feel like creatively, if I eat, then I don't feel really good to paint. So I don't take that hour break unless I'm doing faux. Faux is different. I can punch through faux to keep going, but maybe 5 hours of good mural painting is a lot for me. Because I'm doing it, it takes a lot of thought pattern. When I was working for the theme parks, I remember when I was running crews, I was working 70-hour weeks. You have to when you're working for the theme parks. When you're working for yourself, if you price yourself well enough, you don't have to work 40 hours. That big year that I had in 2004, I had 3 days off. So other end of the spectrum, do you want a lot of money or do you want a lot of time? You gotta find out what's best for you.
So true. Because I had a really busy year a couple of years ago where I was just like money hungry working, and then it burns you out. And now I'm at that point where you are. I'm like, well, how much do I really need? Like I don't need to work a crazy amount. The muralists make good money. So I'm just like, okay, it's my business. maybe. And so mine is, I also show up at 7, or I also show up at 9 o'clock in the morning, whereas all the electricians and stuff, they're there at 7. I'm like, you guys, that's cool, but not me. And then leaving by 4, maybe. And I do 7 hours a day. I'm like, I'm not doing 8. I don't want to. And so I love that you said 5. I'm like, yes.
Well, some days are different, but I've never painting murals. I just can't. My brain gets fried. Maybe I'll do something else, like prep a room for faux or something in the afternoon, but I won't paint that long. And faux too, you get exhausted. Well, with faux, you do one room at a time usually, and you have to wait in between coats. So sometimes you're doing a color wash, takes you 2 hours, and you have to let it dry 24 hours. So it's like, okay, see you later. And the people are like, nothing I can do. You want me to just stand here?
Yep. Waiting on paint to dry.
Yep. Waiting on the paint to dry.
Yeah, I don't know how many days where I painted the background, the bottom base color, and I'm like, well, I'm going to go have a long lunch or something because I just can't do anything. They're like, okay, whatever. I'm just like in the middle of the day hanging out. Oh, it's cool.
And I do have to say, I did this museum in Russellville, Arkansas. It was for a new interactive, like children's thing for the lake there. And they wanted me to do a lake mural with lots of animals and stuff. And back then, that was in the beginning of my career where I was airbrushing a lot of stuff. And in order for you to keep it flowing, we didn't have the product they have now. Now they've got really great paints, but we were throwing latex through a airbrush, and it would clog if you didn't water it down. So I'd be airbrushing. And Arkansas was very humid, and it wouldn't dry. And I was like, oh my gosh. I had 10 days because I went out there with a flight. You have to know. They didn't have any, I didn't know how to put kicker in the paint or anything. So you kind of learn. So that was a little intimidating. Am I going to be able to finish this? So in the beginning, you're airbrushing and kind of waiting and waiting. And then I went to the brush work, and then I'm like working all night. You know, I had to make up for that slack time.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's just, it can get kind of crazy too. And as like you're talking and you're like, I used to work for Bass Pro Shops, and we were like, it was basically like the amusement parks. And so we would do 60, 70-hour weeks. And just
so now I got to ask, because Bass Pro, I have friends with, do you know Andy? He used to work for Larson. But anyway, I did the Rancho Cucamonga Bass Pro.
Oh,
with the waterfall.
Really? I wasn't at that one. I was in Canada at that time, but I had the same time. So there was like 2 or 3 stores going at once. Man. Okay. So do you know like Mark Davey or Pietro?
I know the name. Yeah. Mark Davey.
Yeah, like Pietro. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's really interesting because they actually, when I was there, they offered me a job as a muralist. And that was back in
5 years ago.
No, it must have been 2006 or something like that, 2007.
That was before my time then. I know that they did a Rancho Cucamonga store though,
yeah, it's huge. Of course,
yeah,
it's
they redid
really
it
nice
or something. Okay.
Oh, did they?
I think so. I don't know.
It seems, yeah. I still have my ranch in Colorado, so it was 2007 probably. Okay. But they offered me a job, I think, for $90 an hour. You guys make big bucks, right? $90 an hour?
Because I was pretty inexperienced. I started out at 45 and then slowly kind of went up from there. But I never got around to 90 because I just wasn't that experienced at the time. But yeah.
Well, they offered me 90 and I said no. They're like, what? I was like, I have my own business and I make $125 to $750 an hour, and 90 just doesn't seem enough. I don't want to work that many hours.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
That was my first introduction.
But 45 is really good money too, and you're doing fun and you're seeing the world. Yeah. I didn't make $45 an hour doing rock work, you know, but I loved it. I was living in Europe doing rock work for 35 or something, plus per diem and housing. So.
Yeah, I thought I had struck a gold mine because I was like 24 when I first got it, and on there I'm almost 32 now, so it was a while ago, but I was like, I'll do whatever, I don't care.
That's fantastic. Yeah, that's fantastic. I wish I would have gotten into it when I was 24.
Oh my gosh, Disney has been like on my dream list for so long. I've talked to a couple artists who have worked there, and how was that? How was your experience with that? I talked to artists who
I
have
never
done
worked. I worked for SeaWorld directly, and I didn't work for Disney directly. But I knew a lot of people that worked at Disney. I knew a lot of the Imagineers, and I knew guys that went from the contractor side over to the Imagineers. But I also know
I've heard
Disney.
they didn't pay very well, really.
No, the working in the
So,
theme parks doesn't pay.
yeah.
The contractors will pay you, but like when I was a scenic, and this was back in '93, I was a scenic artist at SeaWorld, and I was making $11.50 an hour.
Oh,
And the actors that were in the set, they were making like 20, and they're all laughing at me, and I'm like, yeah, but I get all this overtime. I was so happy to make overtime. So I actually made more than they did because I was doing 30 hours of overtime. But it's a dream job. Do it. But you'll know that you would rather have your own company.
oh
Because
yeah.
if you have your own company, you have all the freedom. You own your rights to everything. Disney owns all your rights. I was not allowed to photograph anything working at Disney until the park opened, and then I could photograph my own work. You weren't allowed. You still aren't allowed. They own your work.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
yeah.
yeah.
That's
It's a good training field, though.
Yeah.
The Imagineers trained me to carve rock work, and I'm very grateful for that because it is the creme de la creme. Disney is the place to be. If you want to learn all that stuff, it is. I would do it all again. It was fun. And it was cool when I was working at SeaWorld because Orlando's so populated with people that work in the parks and everybody gets free passes. So your friend works at Disney and this friend works at Universal. So you're like, well, I want passes for Universal. Can I trade you? And so you always could go to the theme parks when you had time, if you had time. But
If you had time, yeah.
And just to see that and to be in that atmosphere and working backstage at all those places, you learn all the really cool things about the theme parks.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a learning experience. I remember they didn't need painters for a full month, and they're like, "Well, can you make a tree?" I'm like, "I'll learn."
Oh, so that's fantastic!
Yeah, they taught me how to make a tree. I'm like, "Cool." We foamed
that was
it,
Bass Pro, or
yep, yeah.
I did a lot of trees.
Yeah,
those are fun.
Yeah, because you just get to, you mold it and then you paint it, and it's just that there's a whole art to this. It's definitely a whole instructional thing to sculpting rather than painting. But it's so awesome that you learn how to do all of that, and you have interior design, which I'm just mind blown because so many of my clients are like, what do you think of this? But asking me interior design questions, and I'm like, I don't know. Man, what? So you're inspiring me to maybe take a couple of interior design classes or something, because you're right. It is all intertwined. Sculpting, painting, interior design, it all goes together.
And it's actually theme rooms. After being in the theme parks, and then you learn theming. It's really fun to be able to go in a kid's room and have a bunch of ideas. And I do want to emphasize, since we're mentioning Disney a lot, I try to tell artists to stay away from doing the princess stuff, the Disney characters. People want those Disney rooms, and the way I talk them out of it is you say, look, let me do a landscape, and if you really want Disney princesses on there, we'll get the stickers and you put them on there, and then when they grow out of it, then you peel the stickers and you have a beautiful landscape. That's one way. Or you say, well, let's generalize. She wants a princess, but let's make her the princess. Do her in the Disney style. You can't really put those online, the Disney characters. They go after people. Be very careful with the plagiarism thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. And Disney owns their characters, and they don't like people owning their characters. So if you're going to do it, don't put it in your online portfolio. Because do the things that you want to do, because if somebody sees you did I don't know, what don't you like to do when you paint? What don't you like to paint?
I don't like to paint people.
So don't put any people in your portfolio.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have to, people are like, oh, you know how to do that. I love doing, and actually I didn't like doing portraits until I took an oil class. And oil is so much easier to do the shading and the modeling and all of that. You might really like portraiture if you take an oil class.
Okay. Yeah. Maybe in the future. I'm like, I don't know.
Go with it. Find a nice instructor. It's worth a couple $100. So you're gonna have to buy the oil paints, but really expand, always expand, because you never know what you can bring into your tools. It's important to have a huge scope of tools. So when somebody asks you to do something and you're broke and you can do it.
True, true. So speaking of teaching, so you teach through the Paint Hive. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, these girls set up this company last year. They had it in the works for a couple of years, but they've hired a lot of really good instructors, international instructors for decorative paints and murals. And I think they even have some pottery and things on there. Check them out, the Paint Hive. And the classes aren't real expensive, and they're having a sale right now, 25% off. It's a perfect time to go over there and peruse. I wish I was supposed to do this mural back last summer, but of course I got slowed down with all that. So this will be in the repertoire, I'm hoping, for May. But there's some really fabulous work in there for decorative painters, stenciling and all kinds of plasters and stuff like that. Everybody knows how to YouTube now. It's really good to educate yourself on different styles and try it. Just try it. And if you don't take a class, then you have to learn it a certain way. My portfolio is completely different than, say, you go to a faux finishing school and they teach you these boards and they teach everybody the same boards. So your portfolio is not going to be any different than somebody else that took that. So you have to know, okay, I'm going to take these skills and you got to change them up so that your portfolio expands. If you teach yourself how to do things, then your stuff's going to look original anyway.
So true. I might have to see if I can collaborate with you guys. I run the Artist Academy, and so we teach and stuff but we have no faux finishing stuff in there.
Oh.
And I think that would be an amazing thing to have. So I'll talk to you a little bit about that.
You see this chinoiserie that I'm building back here?
Mm-hmm.
That's got faux finishing underneath it. And the great thing about faux finishing is, especially if your client wants a huge room done, you don't just have to do mural work. You can do faux and then put the mural on there, and then it adds way more flavor, I think, than just doing a mural. And then you can tie it in. Yeah, you can tie it in with other rooms.
Idea. Yeah, I think it's just a way to make walls look more expensive too. Like that, you see faux finishing in really rich homes. You don't really see it in more basic stuff. So.
And the plasters, look into the plasters. There's a lot of really good money in plaster, and I had one, I can't remember his name now, but a gentleman that had a show on HGTV actually saw my work at the Denver show. And plaster is one of the things you can put on your wall that will actually add value to a house. Venetian plasters. So
that stuff's pretty expensive to buy, even like a big gallon or a 5-gallon bucket of Venetian plaster is several hundred.
Well, $65 and up. It depends on if you get the real stuff from Venice. They have a lot of good product. Golden has some really good product. Bear has product. A lot of the stuff that I was using too was like Modern Masters, and Golden's taken over Modern Masters. So that's good. So what you get with Golden is actually better than Modern Masters faux effects. There's a lot of different companies, and you'll learn, like sometimes I can't get a product and I have to use somebody else's product. I'm like, wow, I like this better. Learning by doing is what my German friend says.
Learning by doing. Oh, I love that.
Learning by doing.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I'm very interested in the faux finishing things. I did our bathroom just to kind of hang out or just try out different plaster stuff, and it turned out pretty good. And then I just got on to murals again, but it'd be really nice to go back and just do that faux finishing stuff again, because really, my typical mural price is about $20 per square foot, and so to get that for just doing some faux finishing, pop in some headphones, listen to music all day, and just do the thing, sounds pretty good.
Oh yeah, it's more physical though.
Yeah, and
you're going up and down, up and down. It's a lot more. You'll be more athletic, especially if you faux finish a ceiling. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. That's when my old ladiness goes, I'm not getting on the 20-footers anymore. 10-footers maybe. Ceilings, no. It's especially when I did all the concrete work for so many years. It's too physical.
Yeah, it is physical. I just did a mural on the ceiling where I painted a bunch of geese and clouds, and then I had them raise it up high enough to where I was like 3 feet from the ceiling, and I laid down that way. It's awesome. I just tried, but you can't move around very much. It was good
And
for
it's hard
geese.
to see your palette. You were only using one color, right? Doing that?
So
Were you trying to mix?
I was painting geese, so I would just kind of like right here, like have it by my shoulder, mix it, put it on there. But it was like a 3 or 4 color palette. It wasn't anything crazy. And I wasn't moving around very much, but I just wanted to try it. The construction guys thought I was nuts. They're like, "You have insurance, right?" I'm like, "Yeah." Like, just put me up there.
I got to do that with trees at Disney. I laid down on the scaffolding and carved the underside, and that was fun.
Oh my gosh, so cool.
You get concrete in your eyes sometimes.
Oh yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, life of a muralist. It is very physical. It is, and heights and all of that stuff. And I think a lot of people don't think of that. Are you scared of heights at all? What is the highest you've ever painted of?
I think the scariest that I ever had was I was up on a 20-foot extension ladder that was in a store. So it had to be propped up against the aisle. So it was very steep. And I had to put "In God We Trust." That's what I was like, okay, I could do that. So "In God We Trust." That's what I did. But at Disney, they probably won't like to hear this, but it was so long ago. We were doing the animal containment for Asia package, and they had delivered the dirt inside the containment. So we had 3 stories of plaster, or 3 stories of scaffolding, the pipe and plank scaffolding. So it was really high. And one of the Imagineers, I'm not going to mention him, said, "I dare you to jump into that pile from the top." And I was like, okay.
Of course.
So I was like, "I will, you will." He goes, "Okay." So we stood up on top of the scaffolding and jumped into the pile of dirt, which it was only like probably a 10 or 12-foot drop, and it was fluffy, soft dirt. But yeah, I'm not afraid. That might, stand on, and I fell through scaffolding. Thank goodness I have big hips, because there was a little hole in the scaffolding where they were supposed to nail a board to cover it up. Because when you're doing plank scaffolding, sometimes it doesn't jive when you go around a corner. So there's a hole, and I fell through the hole, but my hips were big enough where it stopped me from going all the way down 3 scaffoldings. So that was kind of scary. And then in Portugal, I had to climb up. You're climbing up the steel reinforcements when you're building and laughing and stuff, and you're tying all the stuff. But they don't have OSHA over there, and they don't have the same kind of construction standards as us. So I'm climbing it up, and it's pencil rod. It's not even 3/8 inch iron. It's pencil rod, and all of a sudden they're like, snap, snap, snap. When you're climbing it up, and you always have a foot and a hand and like 2 hands or 2 feet on at all times because of the snap.
I am loving these stories, though. Do you have any muralist stories of things that go wrong, or things that went really well, or just funny? Or I'm loving these stories.
Yeah, I have one that's funny. My mom and my sister were kind of on my crew at different points, and one time Mom moved a ladder. She had put a bucket of paint on top of a 6-foot ladder and moved it, and it came crashing down on her head, and there was tarp, and we had to pick up the tarp like a diaper and shuffle her out the door into the dirt so that we could clean her off.
Oh.
And we didn't get a drop on the floor, but oh my God, thank God we recovered with tarps. And check for holes, tape your holes with duct tape, because you don't know when you're doing it yourself. Always put your bucket in a corner where you can't kick it. And if you have an open paint bucket, always have it in your hand. Don't put it down. Or you can hook it, if you're on top of a ladder, you can hook it on the bucket hook. But don't put that bucket down, because that's when bad things happen.
Oh my God, great tip. I love it. Yeah, I've spilt basically a bucket of red paint going through a store one time, and I spilt it, and I was on the lift, and it just trailed. I'm like, no. Oh, no. Of course it's red. Anyway.
I did somebody's driveway once and had it power wash it and stuff, but
yeah,
it never really came all the way.
Driveways are like concretes or like that. I've done that with blue paint.
Yeah, right? It's asphalt. It just went right into the cracks.
It makes you more careful next time.
Mm-hmm.
Oh
Yeah,
my
that's
gosh.
why it's always best to ask where you're going to put your clean out stuff. Make
Hmm.
sure you clean your sink too, boy. I've had people work for me and they'll scratch their sink or they'll, leave paint on the wall where they're washing and there's paint on the wall. So you got to touch that up at the end because your worker wasn't doing their
Mm.
best. Yeah.
How is it for you having people work with you? Because I'm at this level right now where really booked and I could really use someone working with me, but I'm like, I try it and then show up late and then they don't do it how I would do it. And I'm like trying to be patient. It's just this whole, I go back and forth with it. What's your take on that?
I was so lucky that she was a housewife and she wanted to get back into the workforce. And I trained her to be my patriot, what are they,
Go to.
partner. Yeah,
Yeah.
we were called the Palomino sisters at that point because we were both
Oh,
blondes at that point. But we worked together for about 10 years, and I was kind of the front man kind of thing. And she's a meticulous Virgo, so she was very good at keeping track of what was taped and what was dropped and all of that. And then I taught her to imitate my style in the faux finishing. So it was so much fun to go to work with my sister. But we both got older and it was harder and harder to do the faux. When you get in your 40s, it's can't do this. And that's kind of why I expanded into doing faux too, is to have her help because she never felt comfortable being a muralist. Now she's she's 3 years older than me and now she's starting to draw and all that. I'm like, why didn't you do this 20 years ago? We could have been muraling our butts off. But I think you have to really trust somebody. It's great. I know couples, two friends of mine, Dave Rock and Joe Pagic, and you might recognize their names. They're big, big, big. They have sweethearts that they trained and they're a team. And that's fabulous if you can be a team. My sweetheart is a fishing guide, so he doesn't paint, but we do things together. Like he's very good at carpentry, so he'll put together like the crown molding and stuff. And then I'll do the chinoiserie or whatever, stuff like that. But he doesn't help me with the murals. But he's artistic. I know if he was younger, he might go in there, but start younger
okay.
and just keep going. But
Train them.
yeah, yeah. So I wouldn't hire anybody off the street. It's really hard. I think I would stay small if it wasn't for my sister. Or you can still work for a company like Bass Pro, or there's a lot of companies that you can be a contractor for too. Look into who does the theming, and a lot of times you can just subcontract. And I did that a lot with Semrock. And I know Jolly Miller's not anymore, but they were up in Seattle, Casa, Wisconsin. Just research who those contractors are building the sets, and then maybe you don't have to work for them all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a really great idea of just if anybody getting their foot in the door, even being a subcontractor, and that way people will teach you, and then you can do it on your own later. I think that's a great piece of advice. Okay,
Okay.
awesome. Yeah, yeah. I never really thought of that. Okay, actually, so how would people find that? So two bits that I'm catching from here of how to really start is to do a home show and then be a subcontractor. How would someone go about doing those two things? Who do they have to stalk on LinkedIn to find who it is?
Well, I wouldn't stalk LinkedIn. It's hard because there's so many people in the business. And I'm in LinkedIn. That's how I found the paint high. Well, we found each other. But most important, build your portfolio and build your resume. There's an incredible thing called the IAPA. Have you ever heard of the IAPA?
What is that?
It's the International Association of Amusement Parks, something like that.
Okay.
It's the international. So it's all the theme parks belong to IAPA. And they have a convention in Orlando every year or rotating every other year. And it's this huge convention of theming. And I had no idea what it was, but when I was working working at SeaWorld, they let us all go to this thing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that would be a really great place to throw my resume around. You can search. If I was going to try and find a job, I would think about going to Orlando. And if you want to be in the theme parks, you got to be there. But Nickelodeon's there, the theme parks are there. There's lots of people that have their contractors that need stuff. Like I work for the Nassau company. They're out of there still. And they're always needing artists because there's such huge projects going on and people move around. And so if I was going to do it again, I'd go back to Orlando and try to get a job in one of those companies.
Okay. Awesome.
And you can do a search on Craigslist, but I would go and see who the Google theme companies and then see where their addresses are. And some of them are, LA's huge too, but it's so expensive to live out there that, yes, say $90 an hour is really only $45 an hour out there. And you're going to have to commute, you're going to have to deal with the traffic, and you're going to have to deal with all that. There's a lot of money there. There's a lot of money in Florida, though, because a lot of muralists are operating in Miami and Orlando. You have tons of theme parks. Like, I was dying when all my friends were working on the Pandora sets and the Harry Potter sets. And I'm like watching all my friends working on this. And I'm, I want to, but I just can't handle the 5-gallon buckets of concrete anymore. But it's such a wonderful lifestyle out there. And then at night, you can go and watch the fireworks at night and have dinner.
I love that. Okay, so if anybody's maybe younger and doesn't have a family yet and can just hightail it to Orlando, highly recommend it. Okay.
Well, and it's hard with COVID right now because the theme parks have been closed. Okay, so you might wait a while.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Because everybody's going to want to be rehired, but there are things going on. And if you're footloose and fancy free, you might even look into China. Our crew went to China and built the Beijing Zoo. I didn't actually go because I ran a crew in SeaWorld instead of going over there after Portugal. But China is huge and booming and has tons of money, and they're building. So if you're, open your eyes, and they'll be opening up soon. So it depends on what you're comfortable with.
Yeah, that's great. I think if I was, starting over and be 24, 25 again, and I would definitely I actually applied to do Disney in Hong Kong. They were doing some renovations. I applied for it. I didn't get it, but that's exactly what I would do too if I was a little bit younger and just wasn't married and all this stuff. But yeah, that's great advice. And I'm so excited because I have a feeling would fit that perfect mold, and it's going to now reach out to somebody in Orlando at least and figure that out.
Well, and once you get the connections, I was working for Manmoran Corp over in Europe, and then I was working alongside a French company. It was Atelier Artistry de Botton, which means the shop of working artistry in rock. And they're out of Paris, and they offered me a job. And because I was already under contract with Manmoran, I said no, but they still retain friendships. I just saw my French buddy, I guess it was about 2 years ago, a year ago, something like that, in Paris, because you retain those friendships. And once you're in that group, just get a job. If you get a job as a junior artist, just meet everybody and make the contacts, and then everybody on your crew will know, hey, they're hiring over here after this job. And then you start buzzing around and you get all the connections, and then you're in. Yep.
And who does everything. So you just get in there a little bit, and then you start to get to know people, and it just flowers, I'm sure. So yep. Taryn has a question. So she said, so you would just reach out to the zoo directly in China. Is that how you would reach out to the zoo, or would you do like the contractors?
I would see if there's an American contractor working in China first, because your visa and stuff, your work visa. But if you search, maybe you'll find a Chinese company trying to find an artist from America, but you better have credentials kind of with you. That's the problem, is getting enough experience in and showing a big enough portfolio. China also hires people with degrees to teach English. Maybe that's a way to get in. But I think I would probably search, find out if there's a theme park that's being built. Find out who the contractors are if you can. And if you speak Chinese, you got bonus points there. But like in Portugal, our crew, I think there was 17 of us or something like that. And 50% of us were women working in concrete, because of the employer. Dave Manwarren was very pro-female on his crews. So that's wide open on that side of it. It's physical, but I'm seeing not a lot of theme parks in Alaska. No, you got fishing though. Maybe you want to be a fishing guide and paint murals fishing for the fly shops.
Yeah.
So I think my credentials as an artist were elevated working at the theme parks, but I made the most money working in Arizona as a muralist.
On your own.
I did do the International Trompe l'oeil Festival in Lodi, Italy. I think it was 2010. And that's a competition that you have to be invited. So you submit your portfolio and you say, I really want to come to the competition. And I think there was only 3 or 4 of us Americans there. So that was really good for your portfolio, and you can make connections with other people. But the Italians are trying to come over to America because of the work over here and the amount of money that you make over here. So China is probably not the best place to make the most money, but it would be a really incredible experience. You learn a different culture. I love living overseas. I lived in Japan, Portugal, and Holland, and it was wonderful. Now I have friends in Europe, and I go over there a lot and just, hey, I can couch surf. It's nice to have the connections.
Yeah, connections and everything. Yeah, and people underestimate how much you can make in your home state too if you work for yourself. I think as soon as you clock in for someone else, even if you're a contractor, I think it's a little bit harder to make as much. But if you work for yourself, set your own prices, like you're your own boss.
Well, I did notice because I went, like I said, I had a ranch in Colorado. When I was making the big bucks, I went and bought a ranch. And I tried to transfer my business up there, but they were all into the log cabin look, and everybody just wanted to color wash, and they didn't want murals. Tucson is Hispanic, traditionally a mural area, just like LA, huge mural area. Orlando has murals because of the theme parks, but not quite as much as the Southwest. There's a huge tradition of murals there. So you might think about moving down there. I know there's Scottsdale. It's got big money and they wanted murals. So think about who you're going to market to. Oregon, not so much. There's murals here, but it's not like when I was down there, people wanted murals because of the Tuscan thing and the tradition of, that's like the outdoor, the city art is so big now. It wasn't as big a thing as it is now, doing all the murals outside.
Yeah.
So you got to know what your audience is. You got to know where the money is, and you got to know what your boundaries are. If you want to stay in your hometown, you're going to have to build up your name and educate people. That's the main thing. Educate, and don't complain about artists. I see a lot of comments on the mural section. Well, they offered me $500, and I told them no way. And it's because they're not educated. They don't understand that this is a kind of a luxury good, and you have to educate them. Say, well, $500 isn't enough for the whole wall, but I could give you this for $500 and take it. Because then they say, oh, they're so nice to work with. When I got this, it was really cool. But that's the same thing like when I was saying about educating them about Disney stuff. Well, I'm not Disney. This is what I do. I can give you an original piece of artwork instead of imitating somebody else. Why don't you want something, because I'm up and coming and your wall's going to be worth blah, blah, blah. Sell it.
Yep, sell it. Yeah, you're right. It's if you're in an area where art isn't as prominent, there's good and bad to that because there's so much space for you to create art. That's how I got my start, was a little big town, Springfield, Missouri, very Midwest, and their art just is not a big thing here. And I had to do exactly what you said. I had to make a name for myself. I had to get out and start doing the little stuff and eventually get the big stuff and educate people. Because here, like, people like cringe if I say, oh, this will be 5,000. They're like, ooh, what? I don't know. And so we usually go down to 2 or whatever. But yeah, you're right. Exactly what you said. You've been through this. And I love I could talk about murals all day.
Me too. It's so much fun. Especially with COVID. You don't get to go out and hang out with your artist friends much anymore. It's such a wonderful thing, all these tools we have now.
Yeah. Well, we've been on here for a little over an hour already. Is there any last bit of mural advice that you have? I know there's probably so much, but any last bit?
And I have to say, friend me on Facebook or Instagram. Follow me on Instagram. I'm happy to answer any questions. Check out my Contract a Mural. That's a kind of an overview on what you need to know as a kind of a beginner muralist. Watch for my other stuff. The best thing, I think, is don't plagiarize. Do your own stuff. Be known for you. And then people will seek you out, because really who do you remember? The ones that can do a really good Disney, or the ones that come up with their own original idea? That's where your big money comes from.
So true. So true. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for all of your mural wisdom. This is actually going to air during Mural Month. So May is Mural
Oh,
Month.
fantastic.
I know, right? And yeah, thank you again so much. I've so enjoyed this. Maybe we should have a follow-up conversation, maybe about a specific subject or something, maybe 6 months down the line or something. I don't know.
Would love to.
Okay,
Would love to. I'll tell you all my other stories.
Okay, yeah. Well, I'm excited for that.
It's been really wonderful. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, I've so enjoyed this. Yeah, where can people go to find you? Your website, is that the best spot?
Well, I have anniemargarita.com, and that has got some mural work, some leather work on it. I'm also at Annie Margarita Art on Instagram, and Annie Margarita or Annie Margarita at Mackenzie River Inn on Facebook.
That is the best name ever. Oh my gosh. Awesome. Well, I hope you have a great day. Thank you so much again. And I'm so excited for the listeners to hear this.
Thank you, sweetheart.
Bye.
And good luck, everybody.
And just one more quick reminder that since May is Mural Month, I have created an extra special training for you to learn how to grow your own art business quickly using murals like I have. If you're listening this month and thinking, okay, let me see what this mural thing is all about, then go to artistacademy.co to learn how you can start making money in the mural biz. The majority of my income comes from murals, and I want to help you get started too, because I know how profitable they can be. So go to artistacademy.co to claim your free training this month, and I really hope that you are enjoying May Mural Month. I will see you next week.